Hi and welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we're going to be fitting front brake discs and pads to Project Greenie. So first things first, let's move the vehicle backwards so I've got a little bit of space and get the vehicle jacked up and the wheels off. Okay, before we start, make sure that the vehicle is on flat ground. Make sure that the handbrake is firmly applied, that the rear wheels are chocked to avoid it potentially rolling backwards, and then we need to just loosen off the front wheel nuts before we then apply the jack underneath the vehicle and jack the vehicle up so the wheels are off the ground. So let's get that done. This vehicle is a 2018 Vauxhall Corsa and the wheel nuts are 17mm. So we'll start with the locking wheel nut, just crack it off slightly, and the same with the other three nuts. And with them slightly loosened off, we can then go and jack the vehicle up. And now with the vehicle jacked up, we can put the axle stand underneath and gently lower the vehicle down, so we're not relying then on the jack to hold the vehicle up. So now we've got the vehicle jacked up and secure, the wheel nuts themselves have been slackened off, we can now take the wheel off. Okay, so we've got the wheel off. Next thing is to remove the brake disc securing screw. That looks like it's a T30 Torx to me, 30 or 40. So let's go find one of those and let's get this screw removed. Hopefully it comes off with no problems. Then we need to take off the spring clip here for the brake caliper, and we need to then remove the caliper, which is held on, I think, with Torx screws at the with Allen screws at the back. So let's get this off first and let's proceed further. So it is a T30, just put that in there. Ideally you need to get somebody to put their foot on the brake or just hold the brake disc like I have, and it comes straight out. Quite fortunate really, Saturday morning in the driveway on my own with no other transport. So let's take that out and put it to one side so we don't lose it. And the next thing is to remove these spring clips off the brake calipers. So just by using a normal screwdriver, put the screwdriver in there, twist it 90 degrees and that one pops out, and then this one should just come out by hand. So again, we'll pop that down to one side so we don't lose it. To make it easier, we just turn the wheel. So now on the rear of the caliper, guys, there's the drive shaft boot, and the two screw or bolts holding the caliper to the pad carrier are covered by caps. That's the bottom one and that's the top one. That should then expose some Allen keys. Hopefully, I can't even see it myself, and usually, like this one, it's a 7mm. So a 7mm Allen key, just undo it there and there. So let's get a ratchet on there and get it undone. So that's one. Quick visual inspection of them, not showing any signs of corrosion or pitting, but we'll clean them up and lubricate them when we come to fit the vehicle all back together. So now we do the top one, and as before, no signs of corrosion or pitting. These are both the same length, guys, so it doesn't matter if they get mixed up. And then we'll take the caliper off. Okay, so now we can just just force the piston back a little tiny bit to give us a little bit of wiggle room. What I do, I just put a screwdriver between the brake disc and the brake pad and just force it back, just so it goes back maybe about 1/4 of an inch. That will then allow us a little bit of space there, and we can take the caliper off. Before I do that though, I've just got a bungee strap. I've got these from a local pound shop because we don't want to be leaving the caliper dangling on the brake flexi, because this can cause damage. So I'll just show you how I set this up. So all I'm going to do is put the bungee strap around the the suspension spring through the caliper, and we can leave it suspending then. So that's nice and secure, that's not going anywhere, and now we can concentrate on taking the pad carrier off and getting the disc off. So in order to take the brake disc off, we need to take this pad carrier off. It's just held on with 2 bolts. Not sure what size they are. I've got a 17 spanner here, so it's bigger than that. So it's probably an 18 or a 19. So let's go get some sockets and let's get it cracked off and taken off. So it is a 19mm, guys, 19mm socket. So we'll just crack this off with my strong bar. That's 1 and 2. So that's 1 bolt, 2nd bolt, and that's the pad carrier off. And now we're ready for removing the brake disc itself. And one thing I have just noticed, because I've been yabbing away and not paying attention, there is 1 more bolt screw holding the brake disc on. So let's get this removed. So that's off, and that's the brake disc off the vehicle, ready for the scrapyard. What we'll do, we'll just quickly clean this area up, and we'll just clean the new brake disc and fit the new brake disc back on. Okay, next thing I'm going to do, guys, is just clean up this mating surface area and the hub itself where the wheel sits on. Get rid of some of the grease off there. So we spray a little bit of brake cleaner on it. Just give it a wipe. Because I'm not witnessing any vibrations through the floor or the steering wheel, I don't think that the brake disc itself is warped, so I don't really need to do a run out either on the hub flange. So as you can see, that's getting a bit cleaner. Ideally, I would like to just put a little bit of copper grease on this where the brake disc mates on, but I don't have any, so I'm going to go against what I practice. So now it's clean enough, we'll put the new brake disc back on. So with the brake disc out of its packaging, just going to offer it up against the original one. These are 284mm discs. They appear to be the correct ones. Again, a make I've never really heard of before. They are just some eBay specials. So what we'll do, we'll just give these a clean up either side, because they have a protective, like a greasy coating on them to stop them from corroding whilst they're in storage. So let's give them a bit of a clean with brake cleaner, and now we're ready for mounting back on the car. So now we just offer up the brake disc to the hub, making sure that it goes over and fits snugly, all the holes line up, and we can put the first screw back in, followed by the second screw. Like I said before, these are a T30 Torx, so we'll just give them a little bit of a nip. They're nice and tight, so the brake disc is back on. So now what we're going to do, we're going to clean up the brake pad carrier and fit the pads. Okay, so the next thing is to just clean up these mating surfaces where the pads fit in the pad carrier. Years and years of baked on brake dust and grime from the road, so we're just going to use a clean up. Again, just use a little bit of brake cleaner, and probably like you guys, I don't have a vice to hand at home, so let's just put a bit of spray on there. And I've just got an old, well, not an old one, a wire brush, and I'll give it a scrub. you can see, nice and clean. Give it a clean off with a brake cleaner and then proceed to do the bottom, or is it the top? So once again, all nice and clean. And then what we'll do, we'll offer this back up to the hub and get it bolted up. So now we can offer up the pad carrier back onto the onto the suspension hub. Ideally you would put some thread lock on these, but I don't have any, so I'm just going to tighten them up as tight as I can. There will be a specific torque, but I'm just going to tighten them as tight as I possibly can. So they're nipped up by hand. Now I'm just going to use my lever bar that I used to take the wheels off with and give them a final tighten. I would say, in all fairness, this is probably about 180 to maybe 200 Newton meters. So they are quite tight. So next thing, we're going to fit the brake pads back in the pad carriers. So here we have the new brake pads out of the box. As you can see, that's the outer pad, that's the inner pad with a clip that goes onto the inside of the brake caliper piston, which I'll show you a bit later on. Incidentally, this is the old pad and that's the new pad. Let's get the right way around, guys. So as you can see, quite sufficiently worn, probably about 3mm left of the material there. So let's get these fitted. Okay, so that's the brake pad itself, and what I use is some Ceratec assembly grease for disc pads. You can use you can use copper grease. People have used that for years, but if I was to use that, well, because I haven't got any, I'm sure the keyboard warriors would have started up. So I'll just put a little dollop there and there. And as you can see on the brake pad as well, it does have a wear indicator, good old fashioned. It'll just start scraping on the brake disc as and when they are worn out. So let's get this one fitted, then I'll lower the caliper down, push the piston back and get the other one fitted and show you how to do that. For the outer pad, it's just a simple case of slotting it in like that. Let's move it backwards and forwards a little bit just to get a little bit of the grease onto the pad holder. So what I'll do now is lower the caliper down, we'll push the piston back and we'll fit the remaining brake pad. Okay, so before we fit the brake pad back in this caliper, what we need to do is first off remove the old brake pad. So we'll just 2 fingers on the end there and just pull it out. So that's the old brake pad. They've worn quite even, which is a good sign. And when we're pushing this caliper piston back, guys, obviously it's going to displace the fluid that's inside the piston chamber. Now this obviously will go straight back to the brake master cylinder, and if the brake master cylinder is full, then it will overflow, which is what you don't want to happen. So what I do, as I'm pushing it back, I crack off the bleed nipple. I've taken the cap off. That is a 10mm bleed nipple, and I put a tube on there and I catch the displaced brake fluid in an old container, which I've put a connector on, which just goes onto there. You can get these off Temu or AliExpress. I don't know, about £1 each I think they are. And we catch the brake fluid that way. So let's get this rigged up and I'll show you how to do it. If you don't have the setup that I've got, then you can just take the cap off your reservoir. Wow, look how dirty that fluid is. That's going to be subject to another video. Put a load of rag around the top there to catch any fluid that gets displaced, and push the piston back that way, but I'm not going to do that. Okay, so I've got the pipe on, bleed nipple cracked off okay. I've just nipped it back up again by hand, and I'm going to use some big grips. You can use proper brake pads just fell out, caliper piston pushback spreaders, but I don't have one here to hand, so I'm just going to crack that off and slowly push it back until it reaches its stop. Just nip the brake bleed nipple back up again, take the pipe off, making sure all the fluid then runs back into the bottle and not onto my driveway, and then just for the moment just hang the caliper back on there. We'll get the new brake pad. There's new grease, well there's not new grease, there's grease in there, so I'm not putting it onto the pad this time. We'll offer this up to the caliper piston and we'll push it in, so I'll show you how I do that. So again, just holding them like that, and with a bit of force it pops back in and holds nice and secure. So then we can offer the caliper back up, having first cleaned the caliper slide bolts. So now it's time to fit the caliper back onto the vehicle, so we just twist it down, offer it up, making sure there's no kink or anything in the flexi pipe. I've cleaned those up, put a little bit of the Ceratec grease on there, and now we just offer them up, push the caliper in a little tiny bit and get them started by hand. If they are difficult to start, don't force them in with your ratchet or your spanner. Always make sure that they start by finger. They do cross thread quite easily. So they're in by hand, and we now just tighten them up. No need to over tighten them, so they're nice and tight. Make sure that there's free movement. Pop the brake nipple cover back on, and now we'll straighten the wheel up, and we'll put, well, before we do that actually, before people are screaming at me, we'll put the caps back on. We'll straighten the wheel back up, and now we'll put the spring clip back on. Okay, these can sometimes be a little bit fiddly, so again I'll just put a little dab of grease on them, and what I do, I start with the top, push it in with my finger like that, push that one in with my finger. Using the screwdriver, I just then force it round and tap it in. And what we'll do now, we'll go and no, we're not going to break anything, are we? We'll go and press the brake pedal gently, only half travel until we get a solid pedal. Because sometimes you tend to find on old cars, guys, that the brake pedal hasn't travelled all the way to the floor for a number of years, and you can damage the seals in the master cylinder. So a good tip there, always press the brake pedal half until you get a solid pedal, then go around to the other side and do the same job on the other side. So now we're in the vehicle, and we'll just press the brake pedal a few times, and straight away within 3 pumps I've got a nice solid pedal. So that's it, guys. Pop the wheel on, let it go down, jack the other side back up, and we'll do the other side. So that's it, guys. Fit brake discs and pads like a pro.